I never asked to be the sick girl. The one whose brave battle with lymphoma inspired fundraisers and Facebook prayers. The one whose parents pocketed $70,000 in donations while feeding me vitamins instead of chemo. The truth was simple. I wasn't dying. I was being erased, replaced by a profitable fiction my mother directed with the precision of a Hollywood filmmaker. The day I found those staged medical documents hidden in our house, something shifted inside me. Not a cancer diagnosis, but something equally life-changing. The realization that exposing my parents' perfect lie would cost me everything I knew, but save the only thing that mattered, my truth. Look weaker, Rowan. Tilt your head down a little more. My mother's fingers adjusted the ring light, casting an unnatural glow across my face. I did as she asked, slumping my shoulders and letting my eyelids droop. The camera's small red light blinked back at me, recording every moment of my performance. Perfect, Mom whispered, stepping back to examine her handiwork. Now remember what we practiced. I nodded, my stomach twisting into familiar knots. The live stream began, and Mom, Marla Clay, to our growing audience of supporters, transformed instantly. Her voice softened with practiced emotion as she addressed the camera. Thank you all for joining us today. As many of you know, our beautiful Rowan received her diagnosis 3 weeks ago. Stage 2 lymphoma. Her voice cracked at the perfect moment. The doctors say she's strong, but the treatments ahead will be challenging. I stared into the camera, trying to look appropriately sick and brave. Not too sick. Mom said that depressed donations. But not too healthy either, that raised suspicions. The balance was exhausting to maintain. We're so grateful for your support, Mom continued, reaching for my hand. I let her take it, feeling her perfectly manicured nails press into my palm, a silent warning to play along. The medical bills are overwhelming, but your generosity through our GoFundMe has been a blessing. I smiled weakly on cue. Thank you, I whispered, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. When the live stream ended, Mom's smile vanished as quickly as it had appeared. She unplugged the ring light and checked the donation counter on her phone. Not bad. Almost $700 today. I nodded, watching her tap through notifications with satisfaction. The GoFundMe page had raised over $20,000 in just 3 weeks. All for a disease I didn't have. The next morning at Westlake High, I walked through hallways lined with Get Well Soon Rowan posters. Students I barely knew approached me with sympathetic smiles, offering homemade bracelets and cards. Teachers spoke to me in hushed tones, as if normal volume might shatter me. We're all here for you, Rowan, my English teacher said, squeezing my shoulder. Don't worry about the essay deadline. Take all the time you need. I nodded, mumbling thanks while guilt burned in my chest. The assembly that afternoon was worse. The entire school gathered to announce a fundraiser for my treatments. The principal, Mrs. Bennett, spoke about courage and community, her voice thick with emotion. A slideshow played, featuring photos Mom had provided, me looking pale in carefully selected lighting, wearing a knit cap that suggested hair loss that hadn't happened. Rowan, would you like to say a few words? Mrs. Bennett asked, gesturing toward the microphone. I froze. Mom had prepared a speech, but the words stuck in my throat as I faced hundreds of genuinely concerned faces. These people believed I was dying. I thank you all. I managed, my voice barely audible. It means a lot. Mrs. Bennett enveloped me in a hug. Such strength, she whispered. The audience applauded, some wiping away tears. Later that day, I sat alone in my bedroom, writing in the journal I kept hidden beneath my mattress. I don't understand what's happening. Mom and Dad say I have cancer, but I've never felt sick. No doctors, no hospitals, no real treatments, just these weird smoothies Mom makes and vitamins that taste like chalk. People keep asking about my treatments, and I just nod along. Mom says it's complicated and I wouldn't understand the medical stuff. But wouldn't I feel something if I were really sick? I closed the journal when I heard footsteps approaching. Eleanor, my 9-year-old sister, poked her head through the doorway.
Rovie.
Mom says dinner's ready. She stepped inside, her eyes wide with concern. Are you feeling bad again? I shook my head, trying to smile. No, I'm okay today, Ellie. Eleanor tilted her head, confusion crossing her face. Then why did Mom put that wig on you for the pictures yesterday? My heart skipped. What pictures? The ones she was showing to Mrs. Wilson next door. She had you wearing a wig and looking really sick. Eleanor plopped onto my bed. Mrs. Wilson cried a lot. A cold feeling spread through my chest. Before I could ask more, Mom appeared in the doorway. Eleanor, I told you to call your sister for dinner, not bother her with chatter. Her tone was light, but her eyes flashed a warning as they met mine. Rowan needs her rest. At dinner, Dad barely spoke, pushing food around his plate while Mom discussed the upcoming fundraiser at the community center. Dad, Devin Clay, unemployed for almost 8 months now, had developed a habit of staring into middle distance during these conversations. Dr. Riley said we should expect fatigue after the next round, Mom said, squeezing my hand across the table. But our girl is a fighter. I looked up. When am I seeing Dr. Riley again? The question landed like a stone in still water. Mom's smile tightened. Don't question things you don't understand, honey. Medical schedules are complicated. But I haven't. Rowan, Dad's voice, rarely used to interrupt, silenced me immediately. Listen to your mother. That night, I waited until the house grew quiet. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 1 as I slipped out of bed and crept toward my parents' bedroom. Their door stood ajar. They were both deep sleepers, especially Dad after his nightly beers. I bypassed their bed and headed straight for the walk-in closet. Mom kept a shoebox on the top shelf, one I glimpsed her hurriedly tucking away several times. Standing on tiptoes, my fingers brushed cardboard. I pulled it down carefully and carried it to the hallway where a dim nightlight provided enough illumination. Inside the box, my suspicions materialized into evidence. Printouts of medical bills with inconsistent headers, clearly edited in photo software, staged photographs of me appearing ill in various settings, a small bag containing a bloody bandage that, when I sniffed it, smelled distinctly of ketchup. My hands trembled. I had known something was wrong, but seeing the fabricated proof of my illness made it horrifyingly real. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was deliberate, calculated. I nearly jumped out of my skin when a floorboard creaked. Dad stood in the hallway, his silhouette unsteady. Dad, I whispered, not bothering to hide the box. What is all this? I'm not sick, am I? He stared at me for a long moment, his eyes bloodshot. Go back to bed, Rowan. Dad, please. Tell me what's happening. He ran a hand over his face. We did what we had to do. His voice was hollow. Put that away and go to sleep. The next day at school, I was called to the counselor's office. Ms. Vega, with her kind eyes and colorful office filled with fidget toys, motioned for me to sit. Rowan, how are you feeling today? Really feeling? I shrugged, picking up a stress ball from her desk. Fine, I guess. Your teacher mentioned that Eleanor said something concerning yesterday. About a wig. My fingers tightened around the ball. It was just for photos. To show what might happen. I haven't started losing my hair yet. Ms. Vega nodded slowly. Rowan, I want you to know that this is a safe space. If there's anything at all, that you want to talk about, I'm here. Her eyes held mine, searching. Do you feel safe at home, Rowan? The question hung in the air between us. Did I? I'd never considered myself unsafe. My parents had never hit me, never threatened me physically. But the knot in my stomach whenever Mom prepared for another live stream told a different story. Yes, I lied, looking away. I'm just tired from everything. That evening, my phone buzzed continuously with notifications. A popular YouTuber had shared my story, directing his millions of followers to our GoFundMe. Donations poured in, $5, $20, hundreds from anonymous donors with heartfelt messages about their own cancer journeys. Downstairs, I heard the pop of a champagne cork and Mom's delighted laughter. $60,000, she exclaimed. We did it, Devin. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling as their celebration continued. Something inside me shifted. The confusion that had been building for weeks crystallized into a cold clarity. My parents were using me, my face, my existence, to commit fraud. And I was helping them do it. That night, something inside me snapped. I wasn't just a victim. I was becoming an accomplice. And I couldn't live with that anymore. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. While Mom was busy staging our living room for an update video, I dug through my desk drawer and found an old USB drive from a school project. This would be my vault, a place to collect evidence of what my parents were doing. I created a folder labeled Biology Notes and began my collection. First, screenshots of the GoFundMe page showing the mounting donations, now over $65,000. Next, I saved links to all the live streams Mom had posted, downloading copies before she could delete them. I photographed the fake medical documents I'd found in the shoebox, being careful to replace everything exactly as I'd found it. The USB drive felt heavy in my pocket as I walked downstairs for breakfast. Mom was on the phone, her voice carrying from the kitchen. Yes, we're so grateful. The community support has been overwhelming. She laughed, that tinkling, public laugh she used for an audience. Oh, you wouldn't believe how resilient she is. Of course, the treatments are exhausting, but she never complains. I lingered in the hallway, phone in hand, recording. Between us. Mom's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. It's amazing what the right filter can do. People are so gullible when they see a pale teenage girl. Add some dark circles under the eyes, and the donations double. My stomach turned, but I kept recording until she hung up. When I finally entered the kitchen, Mom's mask slid back into place. Concerned mother, devoted caretaker. There's my brave girl, she said, smoothing my hair. I made you a protein smoothie. Doctor's orders. I drank it without argument, knowing it contained nothing but grocery store protein powder and frozen fruit. No medication. No treatment. Just props in an elaborate performance. That afternoon, Eleanor bounced into my room, a drawing clutched in her hand. Look what I made in art class today. The crayon picture showed me lying in bed while Mom stood beside me holding what looked like green paper, money. My heart sank. It's beautiful, Ellie, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Why am I in bed? Because you're sick, she said simply. And Mom is getting money to make you better. I hugged her, fighting back tears. You know I love you, right? She nodded against my shoulder. When you get better, can we go to the park again? Mom says you're too weak now. Soon, I promised, though the word felt hollow. The next day after school, I told Mom I needed to pick up a book from the library. Instead, I walked to Lakeside Pharmacy, where Mom claimed to fill my prescriptions. Mr. Patterson, the pharmacist who had known our family for years, smiled when I approached the counter. Rowan, good to see you up and about. What can I do for you? I twisted the strap of my backpack nervously. I was supposed to refill my prescription. For the lymphoma treatment. His smile faltered, confusion crossing his face. Lymphoma treatment? I don't have any prescriptions like that for you, Rowan. Are you sure? My mom said. The only thing I filled for you in the past year was that antibiotic for strep throat last winter. He leaned forward, concern evident in his eyes. Is everything okay? Just a misunderstanding, I mumbled, backing away. Thanks anyway. That confirmation, that physical proof from someone outside our family, sent relief and terror coursing through me simultaneously. I wasn't crazy. There were no prescriptions because there was no cancer. But that meant the fraud was real, and it was growing by the day. I needed an ally, someone I could trust completely. Toby Walker had been my friend since 6th grade. Quiet and tech-savvy, he had stuck by me even when the cancer story began to circulate. During lunch the following day, I pulled him aside to an empty classroom. I need to tell you something, but you have to swear not to tell anyone. Toby nodded solemnly. I swear. What's going on? The words tumbled out. The fake diagnosis, the GoFundMe, my parents' elaborate deception. I showed him photos from my USB drive, including screenshots of the staged medical bills. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. I believe you, he finally said, his voice quiet but firm. This is messed up, Rowan. Really messed up. Tears of relief stung my eyes. I don't know what to do. First, we need more evidence. I can help with that. Toby had won regional awards for video editing. If you send me those live stream videos, I can extract the metadata, prove when they were filmed, check for editing. Over the next week, Toby and I worked together in secret. He analyzed the videos while I continued gathering evidence. One afternoon, while Toby examined the financial trail from the GoFundMe, he made a discovery. "Rowan, look at this." He pointed to his laptop screen. "Your mom transferred the donations into 3 separate accounts. One of them was used for online shopping, high-end stuff from Nordstrom and Saks." I stared at the transaction history, nausea rising in my throat. People had donated their hard-earned money to help a sick teenager, and my mother was buying designer clothes. My investigation led me to the shed behind our house the following weekend. Dad stored old paperwork there, boxes of files that Mom deemed too cluttered for the house. While my parents took Eleanor to her soccer game, I pried open the padlock with a technique Toby had shown me. Inside a water-damaged file box, I found the truth buried beneath tax forms, rejection letters from credit card companies, overdue mortgage notices from before we moved to our rental, medical bills in Mom's name for cosmetic procedures. My parents weren't just opportunistic, they were desperate, drowning in debt from Dad's unemployment and Mom's spending. The cancer scam wasn't a sudden idea. It was a calculated solution to their financial problems. At school on Monday, Ms. Vega called me into her office again. "Rowan, I need to ask you something important." Her expression was more serious than before. "Your science teacher mentioned you haven't been excused for any treatments this month, despite what your mother told the school." I stared at the floor, heart pounding. "I need you to tell me if something is wrong at home," she pressed gently. "Anything you say stays between us unless you're in danger." I nearly broke then, nearly told her everything. But what would happen to Eleanor?
What would happen to me?
I wasn't ready. "Everything's fine," I said, forcing a smile. "The treatments are spaced out. The next one isn't until next week." She didn't look convinced, but she let me go with a reminder that her door was always open. That evening, Mom prepared for another live stream. She applied concealer under my eyes, instructed me to wear a baggy sweater to look thinner, and position the ring light just so. "Today, I need you to cry," she instructed. "Just a few tears. Think of something sad." When the camera wasn't recording, I used my phone in my pocket to capture her real instructions. "Make your eyes red. I don't care how. Pinch yourself if you have to." "But Mom, isn't that? Do you want Eleanor to keep going to that fancy soccer program? Do you want us to lose the house? Stop being difficult and do as I say." The live stream was the most successful yet. Mom tearfully announced that my condition had complications and the treatments needed to be intensified. She promised to keep everyone updated on my journey and thanked them for their continued support. When it was over, she checked the donations with satisfaction. We got another 5,000. That Facebook group for cancer moms really came through. My blood ran cold as she scrolled through her phone. "I think for the next update, we'll need to talk about finding a bone marrow donor. That should really bring in the big donations." Something in me hardened. A line had been crossed. They weren't going to stop, not until they had drained every ounce of sympathy and every dollar they could from strangers who thought they were helping a sick child. That night, I made my decision. This had to end. The morning after Mom's bone marrow donor announcement, I walked straight to Ms. Vega's office before first period. My hands trembled as I knocked on her door. "Do you have a minute?" I asked, my voice barely audible. She nodded, closing the door behind me. "Always for you, Rowan." I sat in the familiar chair across from her desk, gathering my courage. If someone was lying about something serious, something illegal, how would they make it stop? Ms. Vega's expression remained neutral, but I saw the recognition in her eyes. She'd been waiting for this conversation. "That would depend on the situation," she said carefully, "and whether that person had evidence of the wrongdoing." What if they did? I pulled the USB drive from my pocket. What if they had a lot of evidence? Over the next half hour, I revealed fragments of the truth, not everything, but enough. Ms. Vega listened without interrupting, her face growing more concerned with each detail. "Rowan," she finally said, What you're describing is serious. Fraud, exploitation of a minor. These are crimes. But if we're going to help you, this has to be airtight. No gaps, no doubts. I can't handle this alone. I'll need to involve proper authorities. She leaned forward. But I promise you this, your safety comes first. Yours and Eleanor's. She was right. This wasn't something that could be handled with a simple conversation. If I was going to expose my parents, I needed irrefutable proof and protection for my sister. That afternoon, I used the school computer to search for Dr. Riley, the pediatrician who had supposedly diagnosed me. According to Mom, he had moved to another practice, but his name never appeared in any of the fake documents. In the school nurse's records, I found something unexpected, an email from Dr. Riley to Nurse Jenkins from 8 months ago. It was brief but concerning. Ms. Jenkins, following up on our conversation about the Clay family, I've expressed my concerns to the appropriate channels regarding Mrs. Clay's requests for documentation. As I mentioned, I'm unable to provide the specific diagnoses she's requesting for her daughter without proper testing and symptoms. I've recommended a second opinion from an oncologist. Please keep this correspondence confidential. Dr. Thomas Riley. A follow-up email, dated just 2 weeks later, was even more revealing. Ms. Jenkins, this is to inform you that I will be leaving Westlake Family Practice effective immediately due to personal reasons. Any further inquiries regarding Rowan Clay should be directed to Dr. Mahmood, who will be taking over my patients. Dr. Thomas Riley. My heart raced as I printed both emails, careful to delete them from the print history afterward. Dr. Riley hadn't moved away by coincidence. He'd left immediately after refusing to participate in my mother's scheme. With this new piece of evidence secured, I made my next move. Using a temporary email address Toby helped me create, I sent a message to Jonas Marin, the local journalist who had boosted our fundraiser in its early days. Mr. Marin, I'm writing anonymously because I have reason to believe the Clay Family Cancer Fundraiser is fraudulent. I live near them and have observed concerning inconsistencies. Rowan Clay shows no signs of illness or treatment. The family has made large purchases recently, including expensive electronics. Perhaps this warrants investigation before more people donate to this cause. A concerned neighbor. The bait was set. Within 2 days, Jonas Marin appeared at our front door, press badge visible, notebook in hand. I watched from the staircase as Mom greeted him with practiced warmth. Jonas. What a lovely surprise. Marla, I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd check in on Rowan. How is she doing? Mom's smile never faltered, but I caught the momentary tension in her shoulders. She's resting upstairs. The latest treatment was particularly difficult. I'd love to see her if possible. Just for a minute. Our readers have been so invested in her story. Of course. Mom's voice maintained its cheerful tone, but her knuckles whitened around the doorknob. Rowan, honey. Jonas is here to see you. I descended the stairs slowly, playing the part of the weakened patient. Jonas studied me carefully, his journalist's eyes taking in details, my healthy complexion, my steady gait, the lack of any visible side effects from supposed chemotherapy. Rowan, it's good to see you, he said, shaking my hand. You're looking well. Good days and bad days, Mom interjected quickly. Today's a good day, thank God. Jonas nodded, making a note in his small pad. And the treatments? I understand you're at Memorial Hospital. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Mom's face. We've switched facilities recently. The specialist Rowan needs is at Riverside now. I watched Jonas register this information, his pen pausing momentarily on the paper. He was beginning to see the inconsistencies. After Jonas left, Mom paced the living room, phone pressed to her ear. Devin, get home now. We need to talk. Later that night, I heard my parents arguing in their bedroom, voices rising despite their efforts to stay quiet. It was supposed to be 1 month, Marla. 1 month to catch up on bills. Now it's gone national. We can't control this anymore. Lower your voice. Do you want the girls to hear you? What happens when they start asking for hospital records? When they want to interview her doctors? I'll handle it. I always do. I crept back to my room, recording their argument on my phone. Dad's words confirmed what I'd suspected. This scheme had spiraled beyond their initial plan, growing into something they couldn't easily abandon. The next day, Eleanor fell while playing in the backyard, cutting her forehead on a garden stone. The gash was deep enough to need stitches, so Mom rushed us both to the emergency room at Riverside Hospital, ironically, the facility where I was supposedly receiving cancer treatment. While a nurse cleaned Eleanor's wound, another nurse pulled me aside in the hallway. "Are you Rowan Clay?" she asked quietly. I nodded, stomach tightening.
I'm Nurse Wilson.
I work in oncology, too. She glanced toward the treatment room where Mom was comforting Eleanor. "I've been looking for you in our system since your mother mentioned your treatments. That's why I volunteered to help with your sister." She leaned closer. "Rowan, you're not in our cancer registry. In fact, there's no record of you receiving any treatment here. Ever. Why would your mother say that?" My mouth went dry. I don't know. If something's wrong, if you need help." Mom emerged from the treatment room before the nurse could finish. "Rowan, there you are. Eleanor's asking for you." Nurse Wilson gave me a meaningful look before walking away. Another witness. Another crack in my parents' story. Back home, I made my most daring move yet. I called the hospital's records department, using Mom's name and birth date to authorize a request for my complete medical history. The clerk informed me the records would be ready in 3 to 5 business days and could be picked up in person with ID. That night, I returned to my room to find Mom sitting on my bed, my USB drive in her hand. "What is this, Rowan?" Her voice was dangerously calm. "School stuff." I lied. "Projects and notes." "Really?" She plugged it into my laptop and opened the folders. "Then, why does it contain recordings of private conversations? Screenshots of our fundraiser? Copies of documents from our bedroom?" My heart hammered against my ribs. "Mom, The slap came without warning, stinging my cheek and sending me stumbling backward. "After everything we've done for you." Her voice shook with fury. "We kept a roof over your head when your father couldn't find work. We made sure Eleanor could stay in her activities. And this is how you repay us." She stood, the USB drive clutched in her fist. "One more lie, one more betrayal, and I'll send Eleanor away. Your aunt in Michigan has been asking to have her visit. Maybe a permanent arrangement would be best." She left, taking the USB drive with her. But she didn't know about the backups I'd made on Toby's computer or the cloud storage account Ms. Vega had helped me set up. The next morning, I watched from the kitchen as Mom set up for another live stream in the living room. This time, she'd prepared a script about Eleanor, how my sweet little sister might be a genetic match for a bone marrow donation I desperately needed. It was the final straw. She wasn't just using me anymore. She was dragging Eleanor deeper into the lie. I texted Ms. Vega, "I'm ready. Let's stop them." Her response came immediately. "Come to my office first thing tomorrow. Bring everything you have." That night, I lay awake, terror and determination battling within me. I was 15 years old, about to expose my own parents for fraud and exploitation. The path ahead would be painful, public, and permanent. But as I thought of Eleanor's innocent face, of the thousands of people deceived by my parents' lies, of Dr. Riley forced to resign rather than participate in fraud, I knew I had no choice. The truth had to come out, no matter the cost. And when morning came, I was ready to pay that price. The morning after my decision, I sat in Ms. Vega's office, my hands trembling as I placed my backup USB drive on her desk. Outside, students hurried to first period, their voices a distant hum behind the closed door. "I saved everything," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Recordings, screenshots, emails, even the ones from Dr. Riley to the school nurse. Ms. Vega plugged the drive into her computer, clicking through the files with a grim expression. "This is comprehensive, Rowan. You've been very brave. What happens now?" She turned to face me fully. "That depends. We have several options. We can take this directly to the police, to Child Protective Services, or..." She hesitated. "You mentioned the journalist, Jonas Marin? He's already suspicious. He could help make sure this gets covered fairly." Ms. Vega nodded slowly. It might provide some protection to have this in the public eye before your parents can control the narrative. But Rowan, you need to understand. Once this goes public, there's no going back. Your life will change dramatically. It already has, I whispered. At least this way, it changes on my terms. That night, Toby helped me edit a video in his basement while his parents were at a work function. We compiled the most damning evidence. Behind-the-scenes footage of Mom coaching me to look sicker, side-by-side comparisons of the fake medical documents with real hospital letterheads, screenshots of the GoFundMe money being transferred to my parents' personal accounts. I recorded a voiceover, disguising my voice slightly, not to hide my identity from those who knew me, but to make it harder for internet strangers to recognize me later. My name is Rowan Clay. I began, my altered voice eerily calm. For the past 4 months, my parents have been running a fundraiser claiming I have stage 2 lymphoma. They've raised over $70,000 from kind, generous people who wanted to help a sick teenager.
But I'm not sick.
I've never been sick, and I can't stay silent anymore. The finished video was 12 minutes long. Toby uploaded it to a new account under the username TruthTeller15. We set it to publish at 6 a.m. the next morning. Are you sure about this? Toby asked, his finger hovering over the schedule button. I thought of Eleanor, of the donors being deceived, of Mom planning to exploit my sister next. I'm sure. By lunchtime the next day, the video had 5,000 views. By dinner, 50,000. I'd sent the link anonymously to Jonas Marin with a simple message, the truth about the Clay family fundraiser. He emailed back within hours. I need to speak with you. Can we meet privately? We arranged to meet at the public library after school the following day. Jonas was waiting in a study room, his expression grave when I walked in. Rowan, he said quietly. I suspected something was off, but this is beyond anything I imagined. You helped promote the fundraiser, I said, not accusingly, but stating a fact. He nodded, guilt flashing across his face. I did. Your mother was convincing. I never thought to verify with the hospital. He leaned forward. I want to help make this right. I'm working on an article, but I need to know, are you safe at home right now? The question hung in the air.
Was I?
Mom had already slapped me once, threatened to send Eleanor away. What would she do when the video went truly viral? No, I admitted. I don't think I am. Within 48 hours, the video exploded. News outlets picked it up, running headlines like "Fake Cancer Fundraiser Exposed by Victim's Own Daughter" and "Teen Blows Whistle on Parents' Medical Fraud Scheme." The original video surpassed 1 million views, with thousands of comments expressing outrage and support. Mom noticed something was wrong when her phone began ringing constantly. Friends, neighbors, even the president of her book club called asking about the video. I watched from the top of the stairs as she paced the living room, phone pressed to her ear. It's all lies, she insisted, her voice rising. Someone is trying to sabotage us. Probably jealous of the support we've received. When she hung up, she immediately called Dad at work. Get home now. It's happening. I retreated to my room, locking the door. Through the thin walls, I heard Eleanor asking what was wrong, why Mom was crying. My stomach twisted with guilt, but I reminded myself, this wasn't my fault. I didn't create this situation. By evening, Mom had called a small press conference in our front yard. Local news vans lined the street as she stood at our mailbox, Dad a silent presence beside her. I watched from my bedroom window as she addressed the cameras with tearful indignation. These accusations are completely false. My daughter is sick. We have medical records to prove it. This attack on our family comes from online trolls who have nothing better to do than harass a family already suffering. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. We ask for privacy during this difficult time. Rowan's health remains our primary concern. I turned away from the window, sickened by her performance. On my phone, I saw that GoFundMe had posted an official statement. We take fraud allegations extremely seriously. The Clay Family Cancer Fund has been temporarily frozen pending investigation. If violations of our terms of service are confirmed, all donors will be refunded. The next morning at school, everything had changed. Students whispered as I passed. Teachers avoided eye contact. My locker had been decorated with cancer awareness ribbons last week. Now those ribbons were gone, leaving behind squares of faded paint. Ms. Vega called me to her office during second period. Child Protective Services has been notified, she said quietly. They'll want to interview you today. Are you ready for that? I nodded, though my heart hammered in my chest. What about Eleanor? They'll speak with her too, separately. Rowan, I need you to understand. They may recommend temporary removal from your home while this is investigated. The reality of what was happening hit me fully. I might not sleep in my own bed tonight. I might not see my sister. Will Eleanor and I stay together? Ms. Vega squeezed my hand. We'll do everything possible to make that happen. The CPS caseworker, Mrs. Lawson, met with me in the conference room. She was kind but direct, taking notes as I recounted everything. The fake diagnosis, the fundraiser, Mom's escalating lies, the threats when I began questioning. Rowan, she said gently, based on what you've told me and the evidence you've provided, I don't believe it's safe for you to return home today. Do you have any relatives you could stay with temporarily? My Aunt Sarah, my dad's sister. She lives about 20 minutes away. Mrs. Lawson nodded. We'll contact her. What about your sister? Do you believe she's in immediate danger? My voice trembled as I replied, Mom would never hurt her physically. But she was planning to use Eleanor in the scam next, claiming she could be my bone marrow donor. And she threatened to send Eleanor away if I didn't cooperate. By the end of the school day, arrangements had been made. Aunt Sarah would take temporary custody of both Eleanor and me while the investigation proceeded. I waited in Ms. Vega's office until the final bell, when Mrs. Lawson returned with Eleanor. Rowie, what's happening? Eleanor asked, her eyes wide with confusion. They said we're going to Aunt Sarah's for a sleepover. I knelt to her level, brushing hair from her face. That's right. It'll be fun, and Aunt Sarah has that big fluffy cat you like. But Mom was crying when they talked to her. She said bad people are telling lies about us. I swallowed hard. It's complicated, Ellie. I promise I'll explain when you're a little older. That evening, as Eleanor played with Aunt Sarah's cat in the spare bedroom, I received a text from Toby. Check the news. Jonas Marin's article had been published online. The girl who wasn't sick, but was dying inside. The truth behind the Clay family cancer fraud. The piece was comprehensive, citing multiple sources. The hospital confirming I had never been treated there, former neighbors noting my apparent health, financial records showing the suspicious movements of fundraiser money. Jonas had even tracked down Dr. Riley, who confirmed he had resigned rather than falsify medical documents at Mom's request. As I read the final paragraphs, tears blurred my vision. Perhaps the most tragic aspect of this case is not the money stolen from well-meaning donors, but the psychological toll on a 15-year-old girl forced to participate in her own exploitation. Rowan Clay didn't just lose her trust in her parents, she lost her childhood to a lie that consumed her family and community. I kept thinking someone would notice I wasn't actually sick, she told this reporter.
But people see what they expect to see.
And my parents made sure everyone expected to see a dying girl. I set down my phone, a strange mix of relief and grief washing over me. The truth was out. There was no going back now. The weeks following the exposure of my parents' fraud unfolded like scenes from a movie I couldn't escape. GoFundMe not only refunded all donors, but announced a class action lawsuit against my parents for violating their terms of service. The district attorney's office filed criminal charges, fraud, child exploitation, and endangerment. Our house became a media spectacle. Reporters camped on the sidewalk while neighbors alternately gawked and offered statements of shock and betrayal. They seemed like such a normal family, became the refrain repeated on local news. Mom and Dad were released on bail with conditions: no contact with Eleanor or me, no access to fundraising platforms, weekly check-ins with a court officer. They moved into a cheap motel on the edge of town, their credit cards frozen, their bank accounts seized for investigation. Aunt Sarah's modest two-bedroom apartment became our sanctuary. She converted her sewing room into a bedroom for Eleanor, while I slept on a pull-out couch in the living room. The arrangement was cramped but peaceful. No cameras, no performances, no lies. I always knew something was off with Marla. Aunt Sarah confided one night after Eleanor was asleep. The way she controlled everything, how Devin just faded around her. But this? I never imagined this. At school, I became simultaneously famous and invisible. Some students avoided me entirely, unsure what to say to the girl whose family scandal was trending on Twitter. Others stared openly, whispering as I passed. A few reached out with genuine concern, including Toby, who remained steadfastly by my side. "They're just uncomfortable," he explained as we ate lunch alone in a corner of the cafeteria. "They don't know if they should feel sorry for you or what." "I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me," I said, picking at my sandwich. "I just want normal." Toby bumped my shoulder gently. "Normal's overrated. Besides, you're the bravest person I know." "I don't feel brave." "That's usually how it works," he said wisely. "The bravest people never think they are." Eleanor struggled to understand what was happening. Child psychologists worked with her twice weekly, using play therapy and age-appropriate language to help her process the situation. Sometimes she would crawl into my makeshift bed at night, her small body curled against mine. "Are Mom and Dad bad people?" she asked one such night, her voice small in the darkness. I stroked her hair, choosing my words carefully. "They made really bad choices, Ellie. They lied about something serious, and now they have to face consequences. Will we ever go home? I don't know, but we're going to be okay now. I promise." "Pinky promise?" She extended her little finger in the darkness. "Pinky promise," I whispered, linking my finger with hers. 3 weeks after we moved in with Aunt Sarah, Dr. Riley contacted Jonas Marin, requesting to meet with me. With Aunt Sarah's permission and Mrs. Lawson present, we met at a quiet coffee shop downtown. Dr. Riley looked older than I remembered, gray streaking his once dark hair. "Rowan," he said, shaking my hand formally. "I owe you an apology." "For what?" "For not doing more when I first suspected what your mother was planning." He stirred his untouched coffee absently. "She came to me about 8 months ago, asking me to document symptoms you didn't have, to refer you to specialists you didn't need. When I refused, she became insistent." "Is that why you left the practice?" I asked. He nodded. "I reported my concerns to the medical board and child services, but without concrete evidence, there wasn't much they could do. Your mother was very convincing, tearful, desperate for her sick daughter. I should have pushed harder, found a way to talk to you alone." "It's not your fault," I said. "She fooled a lot of people. The difference is I was your doctor. I had a duty to protect you." He leaned forward. "I've given my full statement to the prosecutors. I want you to know I'll testify if needed." The preliminary hearing was scheduled for early May. My parents' lawyers sought to keep me from testifying, arguing that a minor child shouldn't be forced to speak against her parents. The judge disagreed, ruling that my testimony was essential to establishing the facts of the case. The courtroom felt impossibly large as I took the witness stand. Mom and Dad sat at the defense table. Mom in a conservative blue dress, her hair pulled back severely. Dad in a suit that hung loosely on his frame, his face gaunt from stress. Mom's eyes never left me as I was sworn in. Not angry, not pleading, just watching, calculating, as if still trying to direct my performance. The prosecutor, Ms. Winters, approached gently. "Rowan, in your own words, can you tell the court when you first realized something wasn't right about your supposed illness?" I recounted everything, the fake symptoms, the fundraiser, the strange smoothies instead of real medication. With each detail, I felt a weight lifting, the truth finally having its day in the sunlight. When asked if I had prepared a statement, I nodded and unfolded a single sheet of paper I'd written the night before. "I wanted to be loved, not profitable," I read, my voice growing stronger with each word. "I wanted parents who protected me, not exploited me. I wanted to be a daughter, not an investment. I didn't choose to be part of this lie, but I did choose to end it. Not just for me, but for my sister, for the people who donated their hard-earned money, and for every child who really is fighting cancer while I was just pretending." I looked directly at my parents for the first time. The worst part wasn't the lying. It was that you made me complicit in hurting other people. And I'll spend the rest of my life making that right. The sentencing came down 3 weeks later. Mom received 5 years in prison for fraud and child exploitation, with the possibility of parole after 3 years. Dad, deemed less culpable but still responsible, received 18 months of probation, mandatory counseling, and 200 hours of community service. Both lost all parental rights. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Jonas Marin, who had covered the entire case, helped clear a path to Aunt Sarah's car. "Rowan," a reporter called, "how do you feel about the sentence?" I paused, considering. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted the truth. Now I have that. Within days, my courtroom statement spread online. Social media users began calling me the girl who stopped the lie. Hashtags trended. Memes circulated. My inbox filled with messages from strangers sharing their own stories of family deception and betrayal. Then came the letter from the Holloway Foundation, a nonprofit supporting children who had been exploited or trafficked. They offered me a full college scholarship, citing my extraordinary courage in the face of parental exploitation. The future, which had seemed so uncertain just months ago, suddenly opened with possibilities I'd never imagined. But first, I had to find a way to heal. Summer arrived with a gentleness that seemed at odds with the storm of the past 6 months. Eleanor and I settled into a new routine at Aunt Sarah's apartment. The media attention gradually faded as newer scandals captured public interest. The trial was over, the sentencing complete. All that remained was the slow, quiet work of rebuilding our lives. Aunt Sarah, who had always lived alone, adjusted to sudden parenthood with remarkable grace. She rearranged her work schedule at the library to be home when we returned from school. She learned to make Eleanor's favorite banana pancakes and helped me organize my growing collection of art supplies. "Your mom never mentioned you were such a talented artist," she said one afternoon, watching me sketch the view from her small balcony. "She didn't know," I replied. I stopped showing her my art years ago. Art had become my refuge, the one place where I could express feelings too complex for words. My therapist, Dr. Landon, encouraged this outlet, saying that trauma often found its voice through creativity before it could be verbalized. I attended therapy twice weekly, sitting in Dr. Landon's office with its soft lighting and nature sounds. At first, I barely spoke, answering questions with minimal responses. But gradually, the words began to flow. "I keep having this dream," I admitted during one session. "I'm standing in front of a mirror, but my reflection is bald and gaunt, like I really did have cancer. And behind me, Mom is smiling." "What do you think that means?" Dr. Landon asked. That part of me still believes her version of reality. That I'm still not sure what's true. Dr. Landon nodded. "That's common for children who've experienced gaslighting. Your sense of reality was manipulated for a long time. It takes time to fully trust your own perceptions again." "How long?" "There's no timeline for healing, Rowan. But I can tell you this, you've already done the hardest part. You recognized the lie and chose truth, even when it was painful." As summer progressed, I began painting again, something I'd loved before the fake cancer consumed our family life. I started with small watercolors, then graduated to larger canvases. Landscapes, mostly open spaces with distant horizons. Dr. Landon noted the symbolism, without my having to explain it. Eleanor thrived in ways that surprised us all. Released from Mom's constant scrutiny and performative parenting, she became more outgoing, more confident. She joined a neighborhood soccer team and made new friends whose parents knew nothing about our story. "Can I be a real kid now?" she asked me one night as I tucked her into bed. "What do you mean, Ellie? Mom always said I had to be careful because you were sick. I couldn't have friends over or go to sleepovers because it might make you sicker." She picked at a loose thread on her blanket. "But that wasn't true, was it? You were never sick." "No, I wasn't," I confirmed gently. "So I can be a real kid now? With playdates and birthday parties and everything." I hugged her tightly. "Yes, Ellie. You can be a real kid now. We both can." In July, I received an email from Jonas Marin. He had followed our story from the beginning, writing thoughtful, sensitive pieces that never sensationalized what had happened. Rowan, I hope this finds you well. I wanted to let you know that my series on your family's case has been nominated for a regional journalism award. More importantly, it's helped raise awareness about fundraising fraud and parental exploitation. I'm writing to ask if you'd consider helping me with future articles on this topic, not as a subject, but as a contributor. Your perspective is unique and valuable. You're already a storyteller, whether you realize it or not. Maybe someday you'd like to intern at the paper?
Think about it.
Regardless, I admire your courage and integrity. Not many adults would have done what you did, let alone a teenager. Wishing you and Eleanor all the best, Jonas. I showed the email to Aunt Sarah, who beamed with pride. You should do it, she encouraged. Your voice matters. The idea that my voice mattered, that I had something valuable to contribute, was still foreign to me. For years, Mom had controlled my voice, scripted my words, determined which parts of me were presentable to the world. In August, Ms. Vega called to ask if I would speak at a small assembly when school resumed. Nothing big, she assured me. Just a short talk about integrity for the freshman orientation. I think your perspective would be powerful. I agreed nervously. Public speaking had never been my strength, especially without Mom's careful coaching and scripted remarks. The day of the assembly, I stood before a room of teachers and incoming freshmen, my hands shaking slightly as I unfolded my notes. Most of you probably know who I am, I began. Or you think you do. Until recently, I was known as the cancer girl. Then I became the girl whose parents faked her cancer. But neither of those labels is who I really am. I looked up, meeting the eyes of students who seemed both curious and uncomfortable. I'm still figuring out who I am without those labels. But I know this much. Integrity means having the courage to be truthful, even when the truth is painful. Even when the truth costs you something. Even when the people you love are the ones telling the lies. The teachers listened with tears in their eyes. The freshmen, many of whom hadn't heard my story firsthand, sat in rapt attention. For the first time, I was speaking entirely in my own voice, no script, no coaching, no performance. It felt like freedom. That evening, I sat on Aunt Sarah's balcony with my laptop, reading through some of the online comments about my case. Most were supportive, but others were cruel, calling me a liar, suggesting I'd made everything up for attention, claiming I'd betrayed my family for fame. Don't torture yourself with that, Aunt Sarah said, bringing me a mug of hot chocolate. I'm not, I assured her. I just need to know what's out there. Good and bad. She sat beside me, watching as I navigated to the original GoFundMe page. It remained online, but with a large banner indicating it had been closed due to fraud. The comment section had become a battlefield between supporters and skeptics. With a decisive click, I deleted the link from my bookmarks. I took a screenshot first, not to remember the pain but the survival. You know what Dr. Landon told me today? I said, closing my laptop. She said that what happened wasn't my fault, but how I recover is my responsibility. That I get to decide what this experience means for my life. She's right, Aunt Sarah said. So, what does it mean to you? I considered this, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. I wasn't sick, but I was broken. And now I'm finally healing, on my own terms. Eleanor's laughter drifted through the open window as she played with the neighbor's daughter in the living room. The sound was pure, uninhibited joy, the kind that comes only from a child who feels safe and loved. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to believe that we really would be okay.
Different, certainly.
Changed, undoubtedly.
But whole again, eventually.
The truth had set us free. Now we just had to learn how to live in that freedom. What would you sacrifice to reclaim your truth when the people meant to protect you built their lives on a lie? If this story moved you, please like and subscribe for more powerful narratives that explore the courage it takes to stand up for what's right, even when you stand alone.